Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live stream. We got John Brzenk here. How are you, sir?
Good. How's
Good
it going?
stuff. Good stuff. We actually went live bang on the time this time. My dad's going to be happy. I got in trouble last week for going live 20 minutes early, and a bunch of people missed it. So we're on time today.
All right.
How you doing anyway?
Good. What time is it there now? You're in the morning time, right?
It's 9 a.m. 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Oh,
so not too bad. This works out good for us both. This is after work for me, and so 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 9 o'clock in the morning. You're awake. I'm ready to go to sleep.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week for me as well. How's your week been in terms of last time we spoke? There was obviously you've got your match with David Khan. Is October still the date that you're anticipating?
I don't know why I came up with October, but I don't think anybody seems to know even when the round of Levon and Dave Chafee is going to be. I heard August. I heard some people think September, but I don't know. I don't know if I was told October, but I'm expecting October. So I don't know. I don't even know where the venue is going to be at, to be honest. Does anybody heard rumors about where the Levon Chafee match is going to be held? Is it going to be in Poland or?
Honestly, I have no idea. The only thing that I do know is they've officially announced the Vitaly Leletin v Krasimir Kostadinov first round, and that one's in Bulgaria. So I have a feeling they're going to do them all kind of sporadically all over the place in that. But
it kind of It helps that it's Krasy's hometown, so that's or his home country anyway. It makes it a little easier. You only have to smuggle one guy into the country and another country.
Yeah. Absolutely. So John, your match, as far nothing new in terms of developments for your match with David.
I'm just like 2-3 weeks into actually arm wrestling again, and so I'm already starting to feel a little more confident and like maybe I still have it. I'm feeling okay. I mean, I still have the aches and pains in the shoulder, which is bothersome, but I've been working just lat pull downs and just dragging with bands. On a daily basis, just to really get a lot of blood flow in there, and it's slowly but surely. I don't know if it's getting stronger, but I'm numbing it up enough where it's not popping and cracking and feeling super unstable anymore. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's positive news. And in terms of your hand and wrist on the table, feeling good.
Hand and wrist has always been there when I've trained it. It's always been plenty strong enough still. Maybe lacking a little bit just from arthritis and that and old age, but I don't have any of the aches and pains that I used to have when I was younger. The elbow was super stable, the upper arm, side pressure, hand, wrist is all pretty good. It's just that keeping my arm tight to my body now. That's the troublesome area.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, John, as we mentioned briefly a moment ago, we've got the Krasimir Kostadinov Vitaly Leletin opening round for the top 8. I've seen a couple of people in the comments make mention that it's actually in Krasy's hometown, so he just has to roll down to his local gym or whatever. But where do you see this match? For me, it looks incredibly heavily one-sided towards the Vitaly Leletin. But what do you see?
Well, Vitaly's got that super tall arm, and because of that great top roll. But as we've seen from last year, he doesn't possess a really super strong hook. And Krasy is probably one of the best arm wrestlers out there at getting people into a hook or even being able to pull somewhat with a flat wrist. Tremendous side pressure. For me, the key to the match will be whether or not he can, be smart enough to somehow get a hold of Vitaly's arm. He needs to forget about grabbing hold of Vitaly's hand. If he sets up with a normal grip with Vitaly, I can see Vitaly basically doing kind of a wrist flex and Krasy be underneath his hand. He just has that type of arm length. But my approach would be to grab. If Krasy's ever practiced trying to grab a little bit lower on the hand and actually almost on the wrist, with his hand and wrist strength and side pressure, I could see him maybe being able to control the match. And if he does that, I think he's got good chances.
Yeah. Well, the last match that we saw Cressy pull was his super match, the Vendetta, which qualified him for the top 8, which was against Alex Kadecha. And
Right.
Alex is one of those guys that he's not quite the same height and length as Vitali, but he is a giant at the end of the day. He's about 6'5", big guy. And Cressy scooped him in slowly, like just ended up winning 4-3.
Yeah. And from what I remember watching that match, he did it the hard way. I mean, he still grabbed hand to hand and fought with it with his hand and tried to regain that hook. And I just don't think he's not going to be able to do that with Vitali. He's going to have to go in with an unorthodox approach and train and practice a little bit, pulling what seemingly would be not proper way to arm wrestle, almost kind of the approach that I have with Cleve, where you just got to forget about, that monster size long arm and just somehow get that arm, forget about the hand, that arm at an angle.
Yeah. So
for me, it's always been grabbing a little lower.
In that sense, gripping low on Vitali, would you be saying like that Crassy's going to give away his pronation just to try?
No, I think he needs to keep his hand this way, and the only way to keep your hand and arm this direction is actually to bring it down on the wrist. If he grabs onto his hand, he's going to be manipulated by But if he can get low on the wrist, then he's anchored to a pole that he's not going to be manipulated with Vitali's hand. But because all Vitali has to do is go like this, and because of his height, you're going to be underneath his hand. But if you're lower here on the wrist, he's not going to be able to do that. You're still going to have your arm, sideways.
I like it.
His arm.
It sounds like
it seems like it gives away a lot of leverage, but in my experience, it's been very, very effective with guys that have the size on you. I mean, if they're noticeably taller and bigger, it's effective.
Yeah.
And Crassy's strong enough to pull it off. Whether or not he will attempt that, we'll see. But
well, that's really awesome to know that you think Cressy is strong enough to pull that off. I mean, like I said, so far the polls and everything is incredibly one-sided with Vitali, and a lot of people's opinions out there saying that it's just going to essentially be a warm-up for him in a sense. But Cressy, Cressy has pins on. He has a pin on Levan, I'm pretty sure. So he, in terms of horsepower, once the match stops, he's there.
He's got it. Right, he's got it. Yeah, no, if it goes arm to arm, if it goes wrist to wrist, if he's somehow able to control Vitali's arm so he's not completely, turned his palm turned up the sky, I think he's right with him as far as strength goes. I mean, or even stronger. I mean, I know it was kind of a give me match with Vitali and Prudnik, but that last match, Vitali kind of attempted to allow Prudnik to see what he had, or maybe pull inside and just drove right through him. So we really don't know how strong Vitali is if he gets his arm turned wrist to wrist.
Yeah. I don't think
you wouldn't think it would be that strong. I mean, I know there's some guys that are able to pull that you wouldn't think, wouldn't have the leverage like a Kevin Bongard that's very lanky, and you would think if I get this guy in a hook, he's going right down. So I mean, it's not out of the realm to have Vitali be super strong in a hook, but I would approach it as that would be my only chance to beat this guy.
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely awesome, actually, if Vitali pulled out. If Cressy gripped him low and Vitali surprised us all with a big shoulder press or something. Yeah, that'd be a surprise. But I don't think he's that well rounded. I think he really is the outside ace, and that's everything he looks for. So So in the straps, low grip. If he manages to keep his pronation intact and his wrist flexion, then he's got the side pressure to get
all he has to do is keep his hands flat, this direction. If it goes this direction, then he's in trouble. It's really difficult to generate power when your hands turned up, unless you're Jerry Cataret, and you commit to just flop wrist, shoulder press, which I don't think Cressy has that in his tool bag.
Awesome, John. We just got a super chat in from Derek Smith, our good friend Derek Smith. He said, "Good to see John looking healthy. Support for the greatest to do it. I want my rematch when you're 75 years old, John," says Derek.
75? Got to wait till we're 75? All right.
Well, yeah. That's always an interesting one. It's like, how old does John need to be for me to have balance with him? It's a good question.
Yeah, I surely hope I'm not. Well, maybe I will be arm wrestling at 75. We'll see. 60 is right around the corner, so maybe we'll do it at 60.
We just got another super chat question coming from David Grenier. He says, and I think this is a pretty common question. In your super match against Devin, Neil says top roll reversal, Andy Wise style. Did you know Andy, and how was he? Is there any footage that you guys know of Andy Wise?
I don't know what the question is. What about Andy Wise? No, I don't.
Reading it again, David Grenier says, in your super match when you took on Devin, Neil Pickup makes the commentary top roll reversal, Andy Wise style.
I don't know who Andy Wise is. No, I don't know what he was referring to. Not at all.
Yeah. Nor do I. I'll ask that David Grenier. What I'll do is I'll ask Neil Pickup that question tomorrow on the Fix when we're live with, on 2 days' time when we're live on the Fix, who Andy Wise was. But I think he was referring to what we commonly, or Devin coined, the can opener, but that top roll from a deep position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, the most famous moment of that was actually yourself against Zoloyev in the Russian A1.
Yeah, no, it's a little easier against smaller guys. Yeah, when they're bigger guys and they have basketball size hands, it's a little bit more difficult to pull off. But yeah, I've always been somewhat effective at being able to do that. My shorter arm and large hand allows me the decent leverage to pull that move off.
Talking about gripping low and rolling out from there, which is the lead effort for you when you grip someone low, like we were talking about Krasi against Vitali, or you against Zolev reversing him, or you against Marcio? I remember you doing it's Marcio in the WAL final as well. When you grip low, is it your wrist flexion or is it back pressure pronation that is your main effort?
Well, grabbing low is wrist flexion with side pressure to get that posting strength down at an angle. And then once it's down at an angle, then I have the option to either continue to pull in a hook or try to roll from there, which is a little bit more difficult. Typically when I'm doing that move, it's someone that's taller and less leverage, and I feel like I can be competitive or outdo them in a hook side pressure wise. So I usually stick to the hook. I mean, it's a little bit more difficult to roll once you're that low on somebody's wrist. I mean, you're giving away a lot as far as being able to roll on the fingers.
Yeah, it always, every time you see that in arm wrestling, it looks ridiculously dominant to be able to be so low and end up rolling someone's wrist. And I guess it's because you've distracted their effort enough that they've got all their eggs in the basket, preventing side pressure, and that their wrist becomes a little more vulnerable.
Well, if you've got them at a little bit of an angle and you brought them to your side of the table, their hand is basically palm up, and it's their hand and wrist are exposed to. You don't have to try to contain. They're not in an offensive position to be putting pressure on your hand and wrist. So it's almost a free pass to just roll as hard as you can with your thumb and pronate into their palm, which is already somewhat turned up.
Yeah, no. It's an awesome style. John, we got another super chat from it was just from Style Giraffe, and he didn't actually ask a question. He just sent us some cash and says, "Thank you, you're the man."
So nice.
We'll have the next beer on you for sure, Style Giraffe, and thank you very much, John. The main topic of today's show, as is seen in the thumbnail, and I'm sure everyone in the audience is really keen to know this, is we're going to be talking about the two topics of the best of all time and the greatest of all time. And there is no person better qualified to answer this question than yourself, because for everyone else who answers this question, we're looking up, imagining what it feels like to pull all these people. You've pulled just about every single person on the all-time great list, and you have a real-time appreciation of how strong they were at various times in their career. So
right.
it's a big question. Who is the best of all time and greatest of all time?
Right. And it's very difficult for me too, because the fact that I've competed at different times of my life, different eras, basically. I mean, over the span of 35, 40 years. So it's really difficult for me to even categorize yesterday to today, because I don't know what kind of person I was, 30 years ago. So, but yeah.
It's always interesting as well, because we're in a combat sport. It's not like the 100-meter sprint where we just say, well, here's the world record. This guy's the best ever to do it. And it's really clear. It's very much not clear. It's subjective.
Right.
But you have definitely more of an objective opportunity than I do. For instance, I'm looking at this guessing. So what I'm going to do, John, is let's focus first on the best of all time. Now, when I say the best of all time, I'm saying if every one of these people were in their peak form, who would you rank number one, and who would you expect to kind of win, be the ultimate, like the strongest at any one given moment out of these people? Okay, so I gotta read a list, and it's gonna be a pretty exhaustive list, but then we'll work through it. We'll work through it and cross some names off. All right, so I'm not going to put you on this list, John, because we know where you sit on it anyway. But okay, I got Pushkar, I got Devin, I got Chafee, I got Levan, I got Lupkes, I got Lalayton, I got Michael Todd, I got Saplenkov, I got Gary Goodrich, Scott Norton, Travis Bagent, Alexei Vovoda, and Cleve Dean. 12 names there that are on. They're all badass. That's for sure.
Right, they're all badass. They're all super strong in their own lane, in their own,
So if every one of them faced every one of them on, and
there was somebody, I don't think anybody would come out undefeated. I think there's a kryptonite for everybody's, for the Superman that we would call Superman. There is one of that bunch that would be what I would consider probably the best, strongest guy, all around strongest guy. Mm-hmm. You want to know who that guy is? I think it's the guy that you listed. I think it's the guy you listed first. And I might be skewed, but the last time I arm wrestled Andre Pushkar, he just seemed to be like above all the rest. And Andre's was always pretty well rounded. He could pull somewhat decent. If he had a weakness, it was not really pulling very smart in the straps. But he seemed to be able to, he didn't even actually have to fix that, because his hand became just so strong and his hit so violent that, I would say Andre Pushkar, at the end there was,
I like that answer. I honestly like that answer. If I look at those names there, and I say Pushkar, and I think about how a match would go with every one of them, for me, I agree. I think I see him as the favorite in the majority of those matches. So
right,
I'm not sure.
Right, and I mean, I would have an argument of, if most genetically gifted of those guys, with the ability to have the one move that would possibly beat the rest of the field, would be Alexei Vovoda. I think that he would, the size, the width, the strength, the speed, very similar style that I had, of just being able to cup and just pronate and manipulate, and just take away most people's power. If he would have stuck with the sport, I think he's probably the most genetically gifted of the bunch, and strong in that one very, very effective area.
Nice. All right, so we've locked down two. We've got Pushkar and Alexei. We've still got 10 other monsters. I want to know who's the poor person you're going to put last in this list.
Poor person last.
So do you need a reminder of who's left?
The list that stuck out on your list was probably and he worked super hard at the sport, and he became really very good, but he wasn't genetically gifted for the sport of arm wrestling. Would be Gary Goodrich. I mean, small hand, very powerful, great strength to the side. If he got you in a hook, he was formidable. But against the rest of the field that you mentioned, he would have a very difficult time with probably more than half of those guys. I mean, he would be put in a bad position every time because of his hand size,
okay,
and wrist.
So we put Gary sort of mid pack,
right? And now, if we're talking about pure strength, then how do you argue against Dennis, right? I mean, Dennis doesn't he have the curl world record? I mean, the guy, he should never lose. He should. I don't know how anybody could have enough pressure to even open up that bicep curl that he possesses. So he's actually lacking somewhere. I guess a little side pressure or shoulder.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was that what defeated him, but on paper he should never be defeated by anybody ever.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like when I think about Andrei Pushkar against Saplenkov, it was the side pressure and the explosivity from the center of the table from Pushkar that kind of turned Saplenkov a little too palm up, maybe.
Right.
He was never able to get the stop effectively, but
right.
Yeah. So I do have a super chat question here from Cyprus. He says, "Thanks, Ryan. Is it Pushkar because of your 2015 match with him? Was that the match you were referring to?"
Well, and I pulled Andre before. I pulled Andre when he was just a kid, and he was incredible. But I guess the 2015 definitely left a huge impression on me. And just watching him pull the rest of the super heavyweight field at that point. He just kept getting bigger and stronger and kept progressing more and more and more. And there was just there's no escaping that hit that he was, that confidence that he seemed to get in later years.
Yeah.
Obviously there are guys that would stop the hit, were strong enough, the Saplenkovs and the Michael Todds, and that would still be hard, make matches hard for Andre, but out of that 10-person field, I think he would probably be the most effective. He would probably, in a round robin situation, he would probably be the one that would come out on top of that.
He had a good set of tools for tournament arm wrestling. We've got another super chat in from Matt Tickle My Limits Larrett. He says, "Just want to say, John, you're the man, and shout out to Bob Brown for all his awesome videos lately." I don't know if you've watched.
I will not click on a Bob Brown video. I train. I know Bob well enough and train with him long enough that I think I know Bob inside out, upside down, and sideways. So
you could write the biography for John for Bob. Oh, that's good. But no, Bob actually, I got to take my hat off to Bob. I've watched a few of his videos.
He knows how to explain stuff. He's articulate, and he's a decent.
Explaining some really good technical stuff in arm wrestling, and shedding a lot of light on. And a lot of people are kind of like, "Wow, Bob, I didn't know you realized you knew so much about arm wrestling." So, but Bob's on YouTube now, John. If you do get bored,
right.
Thank you, Matt, for that one. The interesting thing about this debate is obviously the deeper you go down the ladder, the more grey and murky it gets. Now, whilst we're talking about Andrei Pushkar, I do recall Michael Todd making mention that when he pulled Andrei Pushkar in his vendetta, he came away from that describing Andrei as the strongest human he's ever felt. However, Michael has updated that. As of a month ago, when he pulled Devin, he said that version of Devin was stronger than the version of Andre that I felt.
Right.
I want to throw in the people's choice, Devin. Where do you put him? Is he worth a mention yet, or is he?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Devin. I never classified Devin as the strongest, most powerful, because his strengths are the BOA just strong enough to stop it. Yeah. So if I was to face him or Pushkar, at least I would think with Devin, I could be in a match where Pushkar was just gonna
Yeah, you don't get in the match. You
hit you just so much power. So I would like to ask, Michael, Pushkar versus Devin. Yes, Devin's super strong, sticking point, long endurance, constant power, but did he feel as strong as the hit that Pushkar, gave to him in, I guess, when they pulled in Las Vegas? Because to me, for most people that would face both those guys, I think they would get out of position and be hurting and walking away from the table, shaking their head a lot more against a guy like Pushkar than Devin. I mean, not that Devin isn't strong, but Devin's strength is he's almost like a Virgil Arciero, just like never super fast, never gonna knock you across the room, but is just gonna be a bull just pushing up against you. I mean, it's constant, just steady, unrelentless, never fading type strength. So it's different.
Yeah, and like you described, I like the way you mentioned that. You feel like any of the guys on this list would be in a match with Devin. They would all get into the match. No one would just get flash pinned by Devin in this list. But Devin still may win. He may have won the majority. I don't know. But yeah, it's very different from that. Right. Losing to someone like Pushkar is almost like it's almost humiliating and embarrassing. Right. You just walk away going, "Wow, I wasn't even there."
Right, and there's guys that, well, you didn't even mention his name, but someone like very well trained Travis, or a Arsen Laleyev when he was at his peak. I mean, those are the type of guys that would be the danger for even a top fueled Devin. I mean, just because he would be vulnerable to that guy that could really lay it on hard right from the go and splash. I mean, of course, if Devin stopped either one of those guys too, the match might as well stop the match because it's over. But that's his weakness, if he does have a weakness.
All right, nice, John. So, kind of recapping what we've got so far, we got Pushkar at the top. We've got Alexei Vovoda, number 2. I've penciled in, after listening to your comments, Saplenkov as 3, and then we've got a super chat coming now that's asking more about Gary Goodrich. How did he overcome his small hand, and where did you roughly see him? Was it mid to low pack?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I would put Gary top 10. He was able to work around his lack of hand size and strength by a posting style top roll. So Gary would require the straps, and he would have to use the straps very well and use a lot of arm strength and keeping his knuckles high and posting. But there are a lot of guys now that I think are even better at doing that. Travis, Arsen. So Gary's
just slid down on the bottom. We've got Gary at the bottom at the moment. We'll put him down there. We'll see if anyone ends up underneath Gary. But
you mentioned Cleve Dean, and in the later, I mean, it's the later years. I guess it depends what Cleve Dean we're using, but how do you can't really put Gary below Cleve, right? The last time they pulled, Gary beat Cleve, and
But let's talk about Cleve Dean. Cleve Dean is someone who I think physically is the biggest on the list. When we're talking height and weight, I think he's bigger than Levan. I think Google tells me he was 6'7". Is that true? 6'7"?
He monster of a man, hard to manage. I wouldn't classify him as super strong. Because I kind of felt him what he had in certain. I mean, if you got him in certain positions and took away that size and didn't allow him to basically get all over you because of his size, he was manageable. I mean, and I think he would be manageable for a lot of the guys on that list, because a lot of those guys on that list are just as big as he was. But back in the day, in the 70s and 80s and 90s, even, I mean, that's like arm wrestling a tree. I mean, it's just, even if you're stronger than the tree, it's just, you can't get your hands around it. I mean, it's just very difficult. So yeah, Cleve was hard to manage, but it's not super strong on the list as far as strongest or best of all time.
All right, so Cleve down the bottom, Gary Goodrich above him. Daniel Urick has sent through a super chat, and he's been a good man. He's helped me plug my own Git stuff. He's reminding me that I should be telling people. Daniel Urick says, "I can't find a good wrist wrench. Any idea where I should search?"
Did
Daniel
you saw
Urick,
some of those?
you're the man. Jump on PanFanArmWrestling.com. That's where they are. Daniel Urick, you're the man. Thank you very much. We got a lot of good stuff on there now. It's all happening, but appreciate the super chat, brother, and the plug. All right, so we have got the top 3 sorted. We got the bottom 2 sorted at the moment, John. We're about halfway through this list. I want to know. It's getting tricky now. I know it's getting tricky, but I'm gonna read out the names that remain, and we'll go from there. So we've still got Devin Larratt, Dave Chafee, Levan Saganishvili, Richard Lupkes, Vitaly Laletin, Michael Todd, Scott Norton, and Travis Bajan.
Travis, Arson, I classify them together. Their strength is that high top roll, back pressure. I mean, you catch Travis in a hook, you catch Arson in a hook, they're both going down, but they have that one specific hit, that one lane that deadly to all the arm wrestlers that they would face. I mean, obviously Travis has beaten Dave, when Dave was peak form at the WL. So, I mean, a well-trained Travis or Arson could beat most of the way stronger guys in that field just because of that one ability that they have. So those 2 guys are very specific, but also very hard to hard to deal with. You have to approach those guys differently than anybody else. I mean,
yeah, it's a tricky one. So on their day, under the right conditions, they really could potentially get a pin on anyone in this list. But
anyone, yeah.
But their likelihood of doing it consistently is quite low in the respect.
Yeah.
Is that a fair kind of assumption, or?
I just think, I think that they've got more holes than the rest of some of the other guys that we mentioned in the field. But it requires a certain type of approach and strength to be able to negotiate that back pressure hit.
Okay. So does this mean Travis is coming in at number 4 for you?
You got to reread the list for me again. Travis, best of all time. Travis, I'm going to put Travis up there. I'm going to put Travis. I would have loved to see. Well, we did see Travis pull Arson, kind of see how that panned out. But Travis wasn't, super Travis. He was, mediocre Travis. But
well, I guess
I'll put Travis at number 4. I think Travis can be prepared and be number 4. But then we haven't spoken Devin yet, and I think the current form of Devin might have the cupping ability now and know-how and arm length to shut that down, completely shut that down. He's going to be across the table enough to maybe, and have enough side pressure to shut that hard, top roll down.
The big version of Devin, this most recent version of Devin, it's brand new to us. So we've only seen the one match with it. Hopefully by the end of the year, we see him pull Levan or someone like that, and then we'll get a much more accurate reading on where he sits on this list. So going off that one match, although it was a very significant and amazing victory, I can understand why it's hard to be certain that that's what it is. But it's tricky. All right, we got Travis at number 4
because he hasn't been tested. He hasn't been tested with hard hit offensive side pressure on to his bicep and side pressure. I mean, yes, he developed his cup strong enough to deal with the problem that Michael Todd was, but did the rest of it also come along for the ride with his extra strength and size? He fixed what he needed to fix with Michael, but the verdict's still out on whether or not he's still able to absorb and stop some of these super hard hitting.
John, we got a super chat from Justin B. He says, if Scott Norton stayed with arm wrestling, do you think he could have been one of the greats? Scott Norton, one of the probably, for me personally, the person I know least about on this list, but the stories I hear about Scott was that he was phenomenal.
They called him Flash Norton. Flash Norton. That was for a reason. He was super explosive, super powerful, but didn't really have a super large hand. His hand was super powerful. I would classify it in the same as like a Dennis Saplinkoff. Very thick, very strong, but not controlling. He doesn't have big, long fingers and wide palm to really be able to control the match. He's similar to maybe even like a Tim Bresnan. I mean, just super solid, super strong. I mean, I don't know if there was anyone in that was probably any stronger than Scott Norton as far as just a side press, kind of unorthodox. I think it's probably came from his bench pressing, being able to just hit hard to the side with almost not even an arm wrestling drag move, but just a Jerry Caderet type hit you with a tricep. But I think there was a lot of guys throughout the history that could have took that away from Scott just by controlling his hand and wrist a little bit. I mean, he was able to figure out cleave for over the top, which was, got the strap and just, but I think throughout the years, there were probably guys that would have gave, Scott a hard time. But yeah, no, as far as explosive strength, upper arm strength goes, Scott was right there with the best. If he possessed the hand of Andre Pushkar, unbeatable guy.
Well, that's a big wrap on Scott's performance as well. To have that sort of side pressure, I can't imagine what it would have felt like. But it's interesting how it highlights how this sport there's so much more to it than just having one fundamental. Having the hand to go with the side pressure is such a critical thing, isn't it? And I guess that's why Pushkar sits atop the list. He had both. So, all right. So Scott Norton is someone that to me it sounds like he was there, but the hand was lacking potentially against these other guys on this list. So I'm gonna pencil him down towards the bottom. Scott Norton slides in there. All right. So what the people we've got left that we need to sort this order out for? We've got Devin, we've got Chafee, we've got Levan, Lupkes, Leighton, and Michael Todd.
I know nothing about Vitali other than watching him pull Levan, which I know really nothing about. I mean, everybody speculates that he's the biggest, strongest guy ever to walk the planet, but he, really it's hard to gauge until he's pulled someone like Pushkar or Saplinkoff or.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Very bizarrely,
or even Michael Todd, for that matter. I mean, there's guys I think that are gonna stick a stick in those spokes, and it might stop and jam up, and he might just freak out. So we don't really know.
It brings up a really interesting point, and something that is by no fault of Vitali's or Levan's or anyone, but. Both Vitali and Levan rose to the top of the world ranks in an unfortunate manner. Pushkar's death, Saplinkoff became sick, and these two guys just took over without actually really having to face
being tested, right?
Either of those two guys. So it'll forever be unknown how that would have come through, but it is interesting. I agree, and given that Vitali, we've only really seen him against Levan, we haven't yet seen how he handles the rest of the crew. So I'm going to put Leighton down the bottom.
We're going to be able to do this list a lot better once Dave Chafee pulls Levan. Yeah. And Dave Chafee, and speaking of, I think as far as pure, I mean, Todd Hutchins is a really good gauge for middleweights, light heavyweights for side pressure strength. Dave Chafee is stronger. I mean, so Dave Chafee to me is possibly or probably most likely is the strongest guy on the planet right now. Pure, just side pressure strength. And he's got a super strong hand. He just doesn't. He's kind of like Pushkar, I guess, maybe, in that he's so strong and he wants to get the match over with so quick that sometimes he forgets to use technique to protect himself. He just goes sideways where he's maybe a little more vulnerable to the, to getting his hand flattened with the King's move with Michael or Devin for that matter. But yeah, no, to me, Dave Chafee is maybe, might be the strongest man. I don't know. I would like to see how, well, we did kind of see, I guess, Pushkar and Chafee, but that wasn't, Dave was a little beat up when we pulled that last day one. So that's not a fair assessment, I don't think. But
it's a pity I would have loved to have seen, as you said, a genuine vendetta between Pushkar and Chafee. I think it was they were building towards that. It was something that was coming, but yeah, we never got to see it. And that Russian A1, you were there. You said Chafee's a little under the weather or whatever. The travel, all that sort of stuff. It is difficult. I don't know the circumstances, but Pushkar did dominate that day. But
no, he was on fire.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a few people in the comments saying, "Can we get a recap of the list so far?" So yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you a recap of the list so far, and we will then work from there. So if you missed it, when you can go back and watch it, I've given John 12 names. The names I gave him were Pushkar, Devin, Chafee, Levan, Lupkes, Leighton, Michael Todd, Saplenkov, Gary Goodrich, Scott Norton, Travis Bagent, Alexei Vovoda, and Cleve Dean. And so far, we have the top 4 locked in, being Pushkar, Vovoda, Saplenkov, Bagent, and we also have the bottom 4 locked in, being Cleve Dean, Goodrich, Scott Norton, and Leighton. And we are sorting out the middle pack as we speak. Now, what you've said about Dave Chafee there being the strongest guy on strongest guy on the planet right now, potentially side pressure bigger than anyone's. Does that mean he's number 5? Is he more likely to beat Devin and Levan and Lupkes and the Leighton and Michael Todd than anyone else in that mid pack?
Well, Michael's the unusual, difficult one to throw in anywhere on this list because Michael's got that one great sticking point, and unless you can figure out how to control that sticking point without having your hand burned out, you're going to get defeated. And there's a lot of guys on that list that are going to fall victim to that back pressure move.
Yeah. There really is. Michael definitely is the thorn in everyone's side on this list. It's just hard to finish him, isn't it? It's not an easy situation.
Super hard.
How would someone like Lupkes, do you think, have gone against Michael Todd if they were both in their peak form?
I think Michael would have been able to stop him. Michael's best against even Richard's very best. I think Michael had that spot, and Richard didn't have the ability to adjust to make any changes to be able to stop that from eventually being defeated by that move. I think Michael normally gets put on the defensive, most of those guys from the get-go, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, he's got that sticking spot. But I would say for sure Richard at his very best wouldn't beat Michael at his very best.
There you go. All right, so hearing that, I've what do we got? We have to have Devin above Michael, obviously, with what Devin's just done to Michael.
I got to put Devin above Michael, but it's funny how depending on who we're putting the gauge on, because I think Alexei still had the tools, of course, the Alexei of old, to deal with Michael. I mean, his strengths were the counter for Michael's strengths. So, I mean, if most people had Alexei's strength, Michael would be way down the list. But most, there's very few people that had that strength. Devin's acquired it now. I think Hermes, even at a middleweight,
he's starting to.
He's going to have it. He's still going to have it. He had it when he was lightweight. He's certainly going to have it when he's 20, 30 pounds heavier. So that's going to be another, tough rematch for Michael. So do we put Hermes on the list?
Well, that's it.
So many guys.
Then you got to put Jerry Carteret on the list too.
Yeah. Yeah, Jerry's hard to deal with. Yeah, well, you just have to have experience with Jerry. You, yeah, Jerry's got strong spot too, but just can't let him get there.
All right, John. So I think we've got it down to we need only 2 more people to be sorted out. So far we've got Pushkar, Alexei, Saplenkov, Bajent, Chafee, Devin. Then we've got Michael Todd, and now we've got Levan and Lupkes to go.
And you didn't mention. I mean, well, current pullers, Lupkes. There's a bunch of guys that I would put up against Richard even in his best years. I mean, guys like Arson. Yeah, but yeah, okay. With your list, that's pretty complete.
Is it Levan or Lupkes? Which way?
Levan. I'm going to guess Levan. I honestly, it's unfair for me to say. I'm just completely speculating on Levan's abilities, but
yeah, and that's it. At the end of the day, like we kind of said when we opened this, the debate on the greatest of all time, or in this case, what we're doing here is the best of all time, not
best of
necessarily
all
the
time.
greatest.
Peak.
The best of all time being who was just the strongest. It is so subjective, but the good thing is you, John, have the clearest of all views of all of us.
And it's still super muddy. Like I said, I was a kid at some of these times I pulled these people, and yeah.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we have a comprehensive list right now. John, as I read this out, hopefully you don't cringe thinking, oh no, how did I put that person down there? But ladies and gentlemen, here is John's best of all time list. We've got 12 names on the list. He has Andrei Pushkar atop the leaderboard. Alexei Vovoda coming in at number 2. Denis Saplenkov coming in at number 3. Travis Bajent number 4. Dave Chafee number 5. Devin Larratt number 6. Michael Todd number 7. Levan Saganishvili number 8. Richard Lupkes number 9. Vitaly Laletin number 10. Scott Norton number 11. Gary Goodrich number 12. And Cleve Dean number 13. There we go. Wow. You know who the happiest person?
Pretty tough list. Pretty tough list. I wouldn't want to face any of them, to be honest. They're all monsters.
Absolutely. I think the happiest person on that list is going to be Travis Bajent. He'll be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, well, and I, when we're saying peak best, I mean, he has proven that he can get just as high as some of the top guys. I mean, so he's beaten Dave Chafee when I'm assuming Dave was pretty well in shape for the WL. So yeah. Travis has that, as Neil would put it, silver bullet of that one lane, one hard hit that if you're not ready for it, you're not able to deal with it. I mean, even Alexei got beat by it. So Travis is up there when he wants to be up there.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you on that.
It's not very often.
Yeah, as long as the money's right. Travis,
once every 10 or 20 years or so.
Yeah, when he does come out like that, he does look amazing. He does a few things better than everyone else. Controlling setups, energy of the referee, all that sort of stuff is something that Travis does. John, you mentioned Arsen Liliev and Travis have very similarities. Obviously, there are a number of people who we didn't even talk about today that could be debated that they should have been on this list. Arsen Liliev is one of them. Jerry Cataret's another one of them. There's probably another 5 guys out there that realistically could be pushing to say, hey, I can get wins on some of these names.
Right.
And that's where it gets super murky. But Arsen Liliev, about him, did you see him? Like, what is it about him that made you compare him to Bajent? And how many people on this list do you think he could have potentially beaten?
Well, I never got a chance to pull him when he was the 230, 40, 50 pound version of, I pulled him when he was 209 and it was all that I could handle. Super explosive, protected his hand and wrist really well. Smaller hand and wrist. I mean, wasn't going to control you, but the back pressure was Travis Bajent style, strength and super hard hitting. I mean, if you weren't ready to get punched, I mean, you're going to get beat.
Yeah, speed and explosivity was something that looked pretty
Goes a
vicious.
long way. It goes a long way with arm wrestling for sure.
Yeah, because that reminds me, you will always say that you felt you were at your best when you were fast.
Yeah,
Early.
And the thing with guys like Arson and Travis, I mean, you try to control them because the direction that they're going. When in retrospect, you just got to let it go and get in the straps. But even the straps, they become even that much more effective with that same hit. So, deadly combination of having that frontal arm strength. Not very many arm wrestlers throughout history possess that. Most people pull with their back and their shoulder and the lat and use their hand and forearm to be able to manipulate the match. It's a special person that has that front arm, lower bicep strength to really keep their knuckles high and post hard. I mean, again, the best to probably ever do it, if we were going to discuss some of the lighter weight guys like Dave Patton. I mean, another guy that was able to pull that off. Very difficult to arm wrestle because of it. Yeah.
Well, that's it. That is an entire another topic, isn't it? And it's something that this that I'd love to dive into perhaps with next week or one of the other weeks after, is when we look at not only the best of all time, but the greatest of all time list. And for me, when we change it from best to greatest, we open up the world to the lightweights as well. People like Cobra, Dave Patton, Engen Terzi. They've all done incredibly significant things from that lighter weight category and often up against the heavyweights as well. So, but today's list was definitely all about just the strongest,
super heavyweights
guys that have ever walked the earth.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That is a really cool list, to be honest, Sean. I really do appreciate the fact that that you've done that. That's fascinating. Like I said, everyone will be now probably in debate for weeks over whether they agree with you or not. But but like I said, you've got a very unique perspective, a perspective that no one else has, given that you've literally defeated everyone on this list. Yes?
No. There's a lot of guys. Never did. No, there's a few guys I had never beat Alexi.
It's
most of the other guys, I guess. Scott Norton never beat. I only arm wrestled him, I think. Well, I arm wrestled him twice, I think. Twice. I wrestled him in Minneapolis, and then I wrestled him in Reno when I was weighing 185, I think.
Yeah,
but
185. I don't think I've seen the photos of a 185, John.
Yeah, no, it was difficult. I mean, because really out of high school, I was probably 190, 195, so I had to really, cut weight for that one. I wrestled 3 classes. Yeah, it was all about the money. Wrestle as many classes as you could.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, guys, if you've missed the full list, do go back and watch it. It's a fascinating discussion there. And as I said, next week we might dive into the greatest list of all time. But as we wrap up this show, I guess, John, you're feeling good for David Dedican. Your body, other than the shoulder.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good that it's still 3 months away. I'm trying to take it slow, but I've gotten excited. I pulled hard last week, or I actually pulled maybe 3 or 4 times now since we last. Well, not since we last spoke, but in the last 3 weeks, we've been pulling twice a week. So we're having a hard practice this Saturday at Eric's. So I'm excited to pull. I've been pulling super hard. As long as I don't overdo it and hurt myself. I'm getting stronger. I feel stronger already.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear that you're feeling healthy and strong, and it's waking up. It's like riding the bike, as you mentioned.
Well,
I think
that year and a half rest probably didn't hurt. So.
Yeah, John, we got a super chat question coming there from Southwest Arm Wrestler. He says, John, do you recommend for a new arm wrestler developing one solid technique like Travis, or working on being more well-rounded like yourself?
Well, there's no harm in being well-rounded. It's like, doing all the different lifts in the gym. I mean, yes, you can recognize your strengths and work on your one hit or your one strength, but why not take that little bit extra time and complete the workout with doing all the different angles that you can imagine.
I agree on that. There's nothing worse than than having an ace and then coming up against an opponent whose
That
their
has
technique just
bigger
derails
ace.
yours.
Yeah, right. Has trumps your ace. Yeah,
yeah. So you got to have. I think it's good to have an ace, but it's good to have a variation of your ace that can handle every single style that may come at you. So
right.
That's how I would look.
Well,
at
that's the key. That's the key is being able to dictate the match to the match that you want, not to the match that they want. Right.
100%. John, I saw a comment in there saying, "Why isn't Ryan Bowen on the list?" I'm hunting the all-time redhead ginger list. I want to be on the ginger goat list.
You're still new. You've got time to get on the list.
I got time to get on the list, but I know if we're talking ginger lists, I know that Jerry Caderet was a ginger. So I got
probably number one.
That's the problem. Then I know people say Todd Hutchins began a ginger. So they're the two that are really stopping me from getting the title. But I think outside of that, I think I'm already in the top 10 ginger list.
Right.
They're a bit harder to name that list than the all-time greats. But
change your list.
Anyway, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for all the super chat questions for today's chat. A really enjoyable topic. We'll do it again next week with the greatest of all times, and we'll let the lightweights out of the bag as well and see where they come in at on that list for John. But John, thank you so much for all your insights today. I really do appreciate it, and best of luck with your continued preparations for Mr. Dadakan.
All right, yeah, sounds good. I'll do a live Instagram video at Eric's practice on Saturday. It's gonna be hot as hell. It's gonna be hot as hell, and it's gonna be outside. So I'm gonna be sweating my butt off. But I think I'm hoping. Well, Eric's got a pool, so maybe he used to have a table that was actually you could arm wrestle in the pool, which was nice. But we'll see if.
I remember seeing footage of. I think it was you and Todd Hutchins pulling in a pool.
Pulling in the pool, yeah.
That extra bit of resistance slows down everyone's hits, I imagine.
Right.
In the water.
Yes, it's really hard to lock the body down when you're half the weight because you're in floating in water. But
it's cold. All right, guys. Well, thank you once again, John. And
so next week,
we'll see you guys again next week.
Same place, same time.
Yep. See you guys.